Welcome back, everybody. This is Cliff again with more Combat Boot Camp. I want to continue on with what we were talking about in the last episode with firing and consider some other weapons that are heavy and very heavy. Most of these are going to be belt-fed weapons, but not all. And they have a few special characteristics. The firing process is essentially the same as what we talked about before, but there are a few differences, so I'd like to talk about what these heavy and very heavy weapons are and kind of compare and contrast them. So we can find these in the combat menu here, the charts, and we can also just use shortcuts. The original combat weapons are in Alt F6. There they are. And the second volume's weapon chart is Control F9, or you can just pull them down. So there they are. You can see all the various weapons. Now, the heavy and very heavies. In the original, the BAR, the Browning automatic rifle, is a heavy weapon, and it has a rate of fire of 1 or 2. You notice the various rate of fires that I didn't talk about before. The number of shots you take per attack. The grease gun gives you 3. Here you can take 1 or 2 with your heavy BAR. And then we've got a very heavy M1919 30 cal. This is a belt-fed weapon with a rate of fire of 4. In the Volume 1 of Combat, these are the only heavy, very heavies for the Americans. And then for the Germans, they had the MP40 machine pistol with a rate of fire of 3, but it's not heavy. The MG42 is a heavy belt-fed weapon with a rate of fire of 5. You do not want to be downrange at this guy, especially with these modifiers, +1 all the way out to 10. Now in Volume 2 we got a few more weapons, which includes the Modus, the 50 cal, which is very heavy, belt-fed, rate of fire of 4. We also picked up a slow rifle for the snipers. The Thompson, which has switchable rates of fire with their own charts. This is the 1919 again, the 30 cal, repeated. The MG42 repeated. And then we got the assault rifle, the STG-44, which is like the Thompson, switchable. But that's not heavy. So the only ones we're worried about in this episode are the BAR, the Browning, the M1919, the 30 cal, the Modus, and then the MG42. So how are these things different than a regular weapon? Well, I made a little table to make this simple. There you go. I put this up as a PDF in the files section for Combat in the Boot Camp Files folder. So, heavy and very heavy weapons are going to have impacts on mobility. You can never, ever sprint with these guys. They are just too cumbersome. So you lose your ability to sprint altogether. And you can always sneak. Now, the Browning is not a crude weapon. It is not a belt weapon. So we don't need an assistant. The Browning is like any other weapon. If you roll a 9, this little superscript 9, you're going to get a low ammo. If you roll another 9, you're going to be out of ammo, just like any other firing. There is no penalty for firing the Browning. But if you're going to run and gun, you not only get the -2 for the run and gun marker, because it's printed right on it, -2 weapon skill. You also get another -2 weapon skill for having this heavy weapon. So a run and gun with the Browning is a -4. The Browning can evade and he can sneak. So the main differences here, well, the main difference is that you've got an extra penalty for run and gun with the Browning. The other 3 weapons are belt fed. So there's yeses here. Belt feds are handled by crews. So I'm just going to do the German one here. So let's see, that is Alt E for enemy. Come on, there we go, enemy. If your particular scenario has MG42s in machine gun, yes, number 20 will go into the cup. When you draw number 20, he is the main gunner. When you draw him, you will pull out his assistant gunner, who has a lower TQ, in this case 4. Belt weapons, there's no marker for this machine gun, whereas with the American you have to put a marker on. So if I take the friendly markers, Alt F, and I want to give, who do I want to give? I'm going to give Lewis here. Now he's a Browning. I don't want to do a Browning. We'll do Kowalski and Douglas. If they're going to be using a weapon, we need to use the markers. Friendly. Other. And melee, flare. This is fire other orders. Friendly, grenade, smoke grenade, grenade, rifle, grenade, grenade, KIA. 1919. We don't get to play with the Ma Deuce except on Jeeps. So there's a marker for the 1919 for the Americans. Now the difference here with belt-fed weapons is they don't use weapon skill. They use TQ. And you use the TQ of the main guy. So this would be a TQ of 5 firing here. And this would be a TQ of 5 firing here. They're out of line of sight from each other because we don't want to have this nasty firefight. All the other things are the same for a fire attack, except we're using TQ, not the weapon skill. Of course, now they set the weapon skill to be the TQ, just so you don't get confused, but you're really using TQ. All right. So we have to have an assistant. Well, you don't have to, but it's better. So the 1919 is a very heavy weapon, more than heavy. Very heavy belt weapons are going to be even more difficult to move around. So if you have an assistant on your 1919, then your fire attack will have a 0 modifier. There's no penalty. Other than, if you have a rapid fire, you can have a -2. And you have to roll 2 9s. That's what the 99 means there. If you roll 2 9s, your rate of fire is 4. If in those 4 die rolls you roll 2 9s, like I always do, then you'll get a low ammo. 1 9 is not enough. You cannot run and gun with a belt-fed weapon. You can't be Rambo running around with your M60. You can't sprint. Already said that. You can evade if you've got a crew member assisting you. If you do not, then you cannot evade and you can only sneak. Heavy weapons, you can only sneak if you're by yourself. And, in addition, you lose the benefit of having your assistant here. You get a -3 on top of everything else on your fire attack. And a single 9 now is enough for you to run low on ammo. Same story for the very heavy Ma-Deuce. You have to have an assistant in order to evade this thing. And you get a -3, and a single 9 is enough to run low on ammo with the Ma-Deuce if you have it on your Jeep. I don't think you really need to worry about sneaking because the Ma-Deuce is only on Jeeps. But if they ever let us have a Ma-Deuce outside a Jeep, you'd have to sneak it by yourself. Now the German MG42 is a heavy weapon like the Browning. It is a belt-fed weapon, so it's belt like the 1919, but it's heavy like the BAR. And the rules here are a little ambiguous in my opinion. Well, some things are not. For one thing, there's no penalty with an assistant, but a -3 without the assistant, with a single 9 without the assistant to run low on ammo, 2 9s with the assistant to run low on ammo. I should point out, without an assistant, what does that mean? That means if your assistant gets KIA'd, well, you don't have an assistant, do you? If he has a heavy wound, a bad wound, then you don't have the assistant benefit. With a light wound, he can still do his duties. So any amount of light wounds is not going to impact it. But a single bad wound or a KIA will result in not having an assistant. Or if you just choose to divide them for some reason. The MG42, if he has LOS to a known enemy soldier, will always automatically get an aim fire attack. If he has more than, more than 2 enemies within 4 of him, he's going to get a rapid fire attack. It's in the errata. Okay, you can never sprint these things. Evading. Here we could evade our heavy. So this should be able to evade by yourself. But the weapons, the rules say that a belt-fed weapon can only be moved by a sneak. But then in the errata, it says that you get the penalty for obviously being run and gun, another -2 for being heavy, that's -4. In the errata, it says there's an additional -3 loss for not having a assistant, so it'd be -7 to run and gun this MG42, so they're implying that we can run and gun this belt-fed weapon, which is counter to other rules. I'm okay with it. We can let Fritz run around like Rambo with his M60. He'll just put his MG42 at his hip with whatever kind of belt he's got with him, and he's just going to spray as he goes. He's not going to hit a darn thing at -7 anyway. And then, if he can run and gun, I figure he must be able to evade. I mean, surely if you can run and gun, you should be able to evade. So I put an asterisk here because these are kind of fuzzy edge cases. The upshot of this is if you have machine guns in a scenario and you have an unspotted soldier for the Germans who gets a sprint order, you should probably peek at him to make sure he can really sprint. If he's got an MG, then you should only give him an evade. The Americans would be stuck with a 1919 belt weapon at only sneaking around. I guess he could evade with help. So that is the main differences. I'm trying to think, what else did I want to say? Yeah, your attacks are pretty much the same. And yeah, I think that is about it for this. I don't need to really show you much else because those are the main differences between the weapon systems. There are no other heavy, very heavy weapons to worry about. that should be able to keep us going for now. I will stop here and stop blathering and talk to you guys again next time.